Hey, my name is PolishLynx and we are continuing with Mirt. Let's go. The campus was bathed in sunlight by the time they returned, turning the houses radiant blue. That evening everyone had gathered in the yard. Sasha had another of his grand ideas. Another pointless vanity project. He'd arranged 4 tables in the rectangle, surrounded by benches held together with scotch tape. What was this? Aunt had thought. Lilia was peering out of her own window, clearly bemused. She threw it open. Hey guys, what is this exactly? An arena. Sasha appeared from somewhere under the tables. You know, Fight Club. Do you need rules to beat someone up now? Woman, it's a bit much for you to grasp, probably. She slammed the window in a huff, but 10 minutes later she was down there in the yard with everyone else. Why not? Mountain thought. By the time he joined the crowd, Sasha had taken up the center of the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, remember the first rule of the Fight Club? You don't talk about Fight Club! Someone yelled. I was thinking no hitting below the belt. The crowd broke into giggles, then fell silent. Lucas had right, Marquis, Alex, and Pasha too. And here they are yet again, I wonder why. Leah said quietly. Anton thought he'd do anything to avoid running to Marquis again. He didn't seem to be much for horseplay at the best of times. Nothing like some hot tea. Well, maybe not hot, but for some tea. Warm tea is okay, but hot tea, well, it's too hot. Anyway, that stare seemed as if it could see right through you. Read your mind, or see your innermost secrets. His eyes looked like they belonged to a corpse. Anton had seen the man's weakness in the forest, but that didn't mean he suddenly liked him. He took a seat as far away as he could, near Diana and Veronica, who were happily gossiping like 2 bears with their heads together. Each fight goes the primer as hungry, Sasha announced. He already had a number of hopeful gathering at the edge of the arena. Alec was there, Sasha was urging him on, and Anton could see he'd make a fearsome opponent. Steva, come on man, do it! Anton heard someone yelling. He glanced across the crowd and saw a group of women trying to convince Steva to sign up. Steve was trying to turn them down gracefully, but eventually caved. He slung his jacket over a bench, slid over the tables, and drew himself up in front of Alex. The crowd grew silent. Anton saw Lilia seated nearby and leaned across to get her attention. Is he serious? What, you're worried? He's tougher than it looks. Steva, watch! She didn't even flinch as Steva dodged the big man's first punch, then circled around his opponent and landed a hit on his jaw. Anton's eyes went wide. The whole campus seemed to be cheering their boss, for want of a better word, as he demolished this local upstart. Alex had strength, but Steva had speed he knew how to use. When the big man was still lining up his wings, Steva already seemed to have worked out where to dodge. He could have landed a punch to the face here, a body blow there, but he kept at it, playfully circling his opponent, like a cat-taunting dog chained to a post. After he missed another easy hit, he offered to cost the match, for Alex was plainly driven to his limits. So Steva resigned, but also won the match. Lilia was in stitches. It seemed like the smartest thing to do. This way, no one could stay mad at him for long. But just as Steva was about to quit the ring, Marquis called out to him. You're on a roll this evening! He stood there in the arena, a half smile playing across his face. Care to go around me too? Steva stood frozen, the crowd was silent again. Just about had it, I'm afraid, and Alex split my lip. Steve forced a smile. Another time, okay? Oh, come on, man! He lowered his head and looked up at the other man. Anton flinched. It was a mistake, of course, to fight Alex. He was local and friends with Marquis, and that Mark wasn't the kind of man to let slide, especially when he was in such a full mood. He'd probably decided he had to trust Steve or risk hearing awkward questions about his power. No one would question him. They were all terrified of him already. Steve slowly turned to face the other man head-on. The first blow landed right in his ribs, and all Steve's speed couldn't save him. He was no threat whatsoever. Marquis shifted like a dancer, without a single movement wasted. And Steve went down over and over until Marquis ground his face into the tables. He wasn't even fighting back. He knew what was expected of him the moment Marquis called out. "No replace," he was really saying. "We go to cemetery, you and I, we the same table. But I'll beat you bloody if you take a single step out of line." And if Alex hadn't been the one to fight in the first place, none of this would have happened. Steve was coughing up blood, his face was all over bruises, and his knees were visibly purple through the holes in his jeans. The other man had already broken a sweat. Steve's legs were wobbling, but he drew himself up to face Marcus yes again. "Give it up, it's not worth it. He's going to kill you. He's lost it, just give him what he wants and it will all be over." Anton glanced at Sasha, and their eyes met. The big man was clearly losing his mind at the idea he'd caused all this. "Do something," Anton thought in silent prayer, and Sasha made to climb in the drink, but then Marquis finished it. "I like the rules, I think. My boy, Steve." He offered his victim a hand. Nobody clapped or cheered. Someone had to walk Steve home. They even looked ready to pass out. Fight Club was over. Marquis and his entourage left. Sasha and Green began to pull the arena apart. Lilia was headed back to her house. Anton caught her arm. "So, nobody stands up to him, whatever he does?" She nodded. "Pretty much you can see why now, can't you?" Veronica walked past and Anton watched her go. He forgot Marquis and the whole sorry spectacle, if only for a moment. "Can you do anything besides look? You think that will get her to ditch Sasha?" Leah shouted in frustration. "Excuse me?" He couldn't quite grasp what she said. "You think I'm gonna notice? You like her, right?" "Right, what?" He muttered sheepishly. "I had someone like that, you know, and I gave up to a girl who, well, she didn't need him. What Sasha got that you haven't? Sure, he was there first. Who cares? You could still do something, don't you? Just walk away." Okay, so dude is there for 2 or 3 days, whatever. This is ridiculous. And with that children inside, leaving a stunned Anton alone in the yard. Huh. God damn it, I have a headache. Anyway, Mark sat down next to Siva at breakfast the next morning and offered a quiet greeting. Siva sat there, motionless, his face frozen, a frozen mask. "Know what came over me last night? My apologies." "Don't." Siva hissed. He tried to take a sip of coffee, but the pain in his lip, still swollen and sore, made it agony. He struggled to keep it from reaching his face. "I crossed the line," Mark said calmly. "I vented my anger on you for you had nothing to do with it. He shouldn't have got you involved." There wasn't a trace of guilt in his voice, and yet his apology seemed sincere. He had no reason to force it. After all, he was honestly sorry. He plainly didn't regret the violence. Why should he? It was just something that had happened, like a broken window. It was hard to hold a grudge in the face of that. Steve had slept eventually, with the help of some pills Green and Veronica had given him. The pain had returned in full force when he woke up, but he did his best to force it to the back of his mind. Why had he ever agreed to fight in the first place? What was he hoping to achieve? Why the sudden need to show up? He'd never done something so conceited before. And he'd been left with more than just injured pride. The relationship between the campus and the locals had been strained enough to start with. Now it was all but broken. Mark didn't eat his cereal, and Steve announced that neither Alex nor Anna had arrived for breakfast. Now that he thought about it, he hadn't seen Anna for more than a day. Where was she? Was she alright? "We'll talk," he said quietly. "Not now, you understand. Find some time to drop around." He finished eating, got up and walked away, disappearing in the crowd. Steve returned to his cocoa, awkwardly trying to drink, and Lily appeared, offering him a plastic straw. She plainly wasn't herself, not enough sleep, Steva told himself. Her eyes were noticeably red.
Try this?
Thanks.
How are you holding up?
Can't take it. Was it her face he saw last night? It was definitely a woman. He talked to someone, though he couldn't recall a word. It could have been Lilia. They got on well enough, after all, he'd asked her. Steva noticed. Was it you that came around to see me the other night? The pills knocked me out, but Green had me some colorful dreams, so I couldn't think straight, but I remember somebody was there.
Nope, not me. I didn't want to bother you.
Fair enough, sorry.
You don't have to apologize, just think about getting better.
He sighed and stared down at his plate. He drank the cocoa, finished his cereal and drank the milk, pretending to be fascinated by the posters on the walls, while he waited for everyone else to leave. Finally, the canteen was empty, apart from Taro, still sitting by herself at the nearby table, reading a slender paperback. Wasn't difficult, reading with sunglasses on. She saw the whole world as 2 shades darker than it really was. Steva got up and sat down nearby, then lowered his voice. There was no telling whether the staff at the canteen might try to eavesdrop.
Morning! So this, are you... well...
This? It's nothing. Look, I saw Anton's shadow the other day and it was at least 2 shades lighter than it should have been. What? Was that him? Marquise?
Yeah, he was checking the new arrivals.
She made it sound as if this was nothing out of the ordinary.
You know how it is, but remember Mr. White? He didn't let Marquis in.
Steva went rigid with shock. How is that possible? Her gleaming red lips twitched.
No idea. Normally, no one can keep him outside.
That explains the temper, I guess.
He still didn't have the right. We had, well, words about your little accident.
They both fell silent as a member of the staff came over to wipe the table.
But I couldn't read him either, is my point. White, I only saw as much as he allowed me to see.
She finished once they were left alone. So what's next?
I don't know.
She spread her hands and set her bracelets to ringing.
Nothing good, definitely.
Steva was left at a loss for words. He knew a fair bit about Mirt, more than many others at least. Now he felt completely at sea, as if the familiar sights and the hints the locals passed around meant nothing anymore. He knew Marquis was familiar with the shadow and did something in there, but what exactly? What could it be? Tara had opened up to him once and he tried to fill in the blanks based on what she said, but he still had empty spaces on his mental map of the whole affair. This was the same confusion all over again. It was obvious White's arrival promised nothing good, but why? How dire was the threat, and why was Tara so frightened? He wanted to ask her something, but he couldn't put the questions together.
Did you plan on going to Vorontsov anytime soon?
Tara asked all of a sudden. I thought maybe tomorrow, but so what? He asked. It was just like her to change subject so drastically.
It's Anna's birthday. I need to get her something.
Why not? As long as you're driving presumably in no fit state to get behind the wheel.
I noticed. What are you on your way? Call for dreams?
That's the ones, but wait, so it was you, the other night.
You didn't remember.
Steva shook his head.
And everything you
said to me?
Gone,
he said. Can't recall a word. What did I come out with?
Just a lot of nonsense,
she said, rising from her seat.
Leave it in the shadows. I'll be at the campus at 10.
Steva got up and walked to the door. He lied to her about the pain. It was still there, especially when he moved. He took a breath. The air was freezing. The cold came on suddenly and without warning here, painting the whole town in silver. He saw the mountains in the distance, above the forest, shrouded in mist. He still hadn't been, for all he'd resolved to make the trip. He promised again he'd go, someday, then shrugged his jacket on and walked through the campus. A snowflake spiraled down out of the sky, then more of them. Steva couldn't resist a smile, much as his face hurt. Crowds of people filled the streets, laughing and yelling, as if this were pennies from heaven. They seemed to have forgotten the ghastly incident just yesterday. It wasn't hard when faced with something so beautiful. For all his bitterness, Siva felt like a child again, just for a moment. Sitting in the classroom, hoping for the day to end, not seeing the snowfall, his thoughts already outside, even with 10 minutes of the lesson still to go. Hey Steva, snow, snow! Sasha called out, waiting. I noticed. He took a pair of mittens from his pockets and carefully worked them over his injured hands. It went on for the 3 hours. By the time the snow had stopped, it was piled high near the houses. Snow angels and half-finished snowmen dotted the yard. Siva gazed through his window at the shimmering white drifts that covered the world, until his eyes began to hurt. He liked Mirt, quite possibly more than anyone else. Everyone fit in. There was no hustle and bustle. The important things never passed you by unnoticed in the rush to keep up. He'd never thought he'd find such satisfaction in the humble nature of small-town life. There were people the town rejected, but apparently he wasn't one of them. Siva belonged to Mirt as much as he belonged to him, even though he still had a number of things to learn. What would he do if all this was gone? Where else could he find this kind of acceptance? Some days you felt your life forked into separate paths. It happened to him when he first arrived in Mirt. He remembered it as if it were happening right now. It was snowing then too, so heavily it was difficult to walk anywhere. He heard a knock on the door, just as the water from the tea began to boil. Steva turned off the stove and opened the door, wondering who this could be. He thought, and the boy's hat was wet from melted snow, most likely, and he was red in the face. Come in. Steva attempted a smile. Anton entered the room, brushing the snow from his coat. Are you alright? Yeah, I guess. You want some tea?
You guess?
Steva froze for a moment, and never thought the other man could sound so angry.
What he did wasn't
right, he admitted as much. Steva said calmly as he stepped aside.
It's not normal.
Did I ever say it was?
Then why? Why they all stay quiet? What gives him the right? He's not the king, he's not God.
Are you done? Steva pointed to the chair by the table. Smuba. Who the hell is that? If you're quite finished throwing tantrum, I can tell you a couple of things. Arnold sat down on the table. Steva placed up a cup of tea in front of him and sat on the cupboard. Okay, so pay attention. 10 years ago, this place was Mirt. It wasn't anything.
Ruins, right? Some old village. Burned down a long time ago. Civilization dead and buried. I saw the pictures.
People were interested, for this place was different. It had scientific interest. It's pretty complicated. Scientists were always visiting, but they never stuck around for long, until 2 of them said to make a go for it. They called their families in, assistant, personal staff. That's it, now those 2. That was Marquis's father, Veronica's too. They built a research station. Then they got more contractors in and started work on the center, a big tall building, like the heart of the whole town. They keep bringing new people like you in as temporary staff. What you have to understand is, 5 years ago, something went wrong. Don't ask what, there's no chance any of the locals will tell you, but it killed everyone in the center. 20 people, Marquis, parents, wearing costume, Taros, sons. Marquis saw the whole thing. He wouldn't breathe a word for days after it happened. But then he just picked up where his dad left off. Turned out he knew the project as if it was his idea all along. He hired new people, poured more cash into construction, there was no end to it. A regular atlas, just like his papa, whatever anyone thinks of him.
It still doesn't give him the right to do everything he did.
You need to know where he's coming from. That worked for me. They all have history, a cross to bear. You need one here, or you will never fit in. Arnold stared down into his cup. He'd never even lifted it off the tabletop. Steva could practically hear the younger man's thoughts, buzzing around inside his head. Thank you, I appreciate this. I should go. Did he understand, or was he already nursing a grudge? Who knew? Anton seemed very much the dark horse. He acted as if he didn't care, but inside he was the desperate, reckless sort, that much was obvious. Of which rattled Steva. It was not Anton specifically who scared him. It was more what he might bring down himself. The younger man turned back, standing in the doorway. You say I could call my brother? Oh, sure, you want the post office. We've got a free phone. If you can find it, let me know. I'll take you. He locked the door behind Anton and sat down. He glanced at Anton's tea, untouched, and stared into the cup the way Tara did. If he knew how to see the future, this would be so much easier. For Tara used loose-leaf tea, Steve thought, and he only had packets. He badly wanted a cigarette, for he'd vowed not to smoke up there. He was about to open the window when someone knocked on the door again. Steve swore, turned round and went to answer it. This time it was Green, dressed in his usual white tank top. He gave Steve the same blank stare that he always did, then nodded and wandered inside. Did you want something? Green gave a sigh. How are the pills? Fine, they put me to bed at least. I'd slept until morning. Colorful dreams, they're killed like that, even if some people... He paused, just to make sure Steve knew who he was referring to. Say they're poison. They are, my friend, they are, but sometimes nothing else does the job. Steve offered the other man Anton's tea, but Green shook his head. It was surprising he wouldn't have come just for that. When is it your day off to Vorontsova? I need to buy something. Steve hesitated grudgingly. Tomorrow? Room for one more. No, Steve wanted to say just me and Tara, but he wasn't going to lie. That wasn't fair. Sure, 9 o'clock at the garage. Don't be late. Green nodded again and left. By now Anton's tea had gone completely cold. No longer feeling thirsty, Steve poured it away to the sink. Down the sink. Next morning, Tara showed up, knocking 3 times on the door. Steve left the house, still fumbling with the buttons of his coat. Tara had her glasses, the same as usual, for there was no sun. Are you ready? Pretty much, but we've got Green tagging along. I know. They walked to the garage. There were only 3 cars in the whole campus. Nobody, apart from the mysterious wild, had traveled to Mirt under their own steam. Steve was sat in front, his backpack with his sandwiches and his flask of tea went in the rear. He'd never liked Vorontsova, a shabby rundown place, quite unlike Mirt. No one who lived there showed the slightest sign of wit or education. There was nothing interesting about it. They certainly never had snow in the middle of summer. Then Green turned up with a muttered morning. He seemed to huddle himself on seeing Tara. I want some food. Bread, cheese, meat, biscuits, you name it. We don't want to stay there any longer than we have to, right? The engine turned over on the first try. Yet while the snow had begun to melt, the road was in terrible condition, and Tara's driving wasn't far behind. Steve found himself telling her what to do despite his best intentions, for she gave him no arguments, silently following his instructions. They left Mirt. There was no sign in the border, only a tall metal fence, the same as any secluded township. The temperature rose steadily higher as they drove further away, until the snow was almost all gone. The mood was still deep enough they found themselves stuck halfway to Vorontsova. Come on, Gran, lend a hand. Steve climbed out of the car. With the 2 of them working together, they freed the car from the icy grips soon enough, but Steve realized he'd done something awful to his arm, as if he'd dislocated it and already forced it back in. Even the fight didn't hurt him this much. Apparently it showed. Green glanced at him, concerned. You okay there? Fine, no worries. Can we just take a break? I need a smoke. He reached for his cigarettes with trembling hands. An owl hooted somewhere deep in the woods, yet he couldn't hear another living thing. If he died here, Steve thought, who'd ever find him? Did no one even use this misbegotten little trail? He pictured his corpse sprawled in the mud, just off the road, perhaps beneath the pines. They never found him until summer was over, a lonely skeleton, the roots tangled through its ribcage. Steve! Tara called through the open window. Are you done? You are the one who wanted to get there today. Steve threw down his cigarette and ground it in the mud, trying to bury it entirely. That image of his grave under the pine trees took a long time to leave his thoughts. Anton, 3rd July. Anton called his brother from the post office to give the other man a quick update. I missed him, he thought all of a sudden. Too much. His brother was speaking quietly. There was a child asleep in the background. It made Anton happy, at least to think that Cyril was having an easier time of it now he'd left. He knew he'd been a burden. The weather became notably warmer. The sun came out just after lunch. The snow still lay over Mirt, however, soft as cotton. Walking from the post office back to campus was a pleasure. It was quiet inside the empty house. The only sound was the noise of the floorboards creaking underfoot. Anton didn't feel like sleeping, so he quickly dropped into his room to leave his rucksack, then went downstairs. Outside it was quiet. Everyone seemed to be asleep, but it was unexpectedly gratifying to be alone, as if all this time he needed nothing more than to sit by himself in the courtyard. The chilly air had disappeared altogether. He wasn't shivering any longer. Tables were still piled with the detritus from yesterday, waiting to be cleared away. Anton sat in the middle, surrounded by glasses and paper plates, and thought about Veronica. And there she was, just like that, as if her name was a charm. She lingered at the entrance to the building, head turned towards somebody inside. Then she skipped over the courtyard, and her gaze came to rest on Anton. He wanted to swoon, but held himself with an effort. She sat down on the same table, across from him. Oh Lord, and smiled, still not saying anything. Hey, it's Veronica, right? It's Veronica, right? As if he couldn't remember her name, even though he repeated it like a prayer every night before he went to sleep. Wow, what a creep. That's it, take a break. She brushed her long hair away from her face and looked around. Every movement was like the beating of a butterfly's wings or the flutter of a poplar's branches. Something like that? What, the cookie? Sure. She offered him a packet, half empty, of oatmeal cookies. Anton took one, then found he didn't want to eat it in front of her, and he held for a moment, then surreptitiously put it in the pocket of his jacket. I can't seem to get to sleep. For some reason, such a drag, she said. Want to take a walk? Where to? Anywhere you want. Down to the woods, the shore. So, the woods or the shore? Why not both? He was getting a burst. Come on then! And they got up and left, just like that. Sasha wouldn't be too happy about this. Anton thought he'd never seen the man angry, but he could imagine what that might be like. On the other hand, so what? So he'd asked her to come with him down to the river. How are you finding Mirt? This was their favorite question, Anton realized, as if it was traditional to ask all the new arrivals. He heard it at least 10 times over the past few days. It's nice, very cozy, a little strange though. What's strange? Quite a bit, I mean, how come? He wanted to ask her about the cemetery, but cut himself off. It would sound impolite. He paused, trying to think of other softer words. You were saying? Last Sunday I saw some of the locals going off through the woods. Is that some kind of tradition? We're headed to the cemetery. Her voice didn't change. She didn't seem to be offended. We've all got friends there, family, my brother, my parents, so yeah, it's tradition. We visit once a week. Oh, sorry, I had no idea. It's fine, I understand, no need to apologize. The snow crunched underfoot, and Anton saw 4 rugged trails of footprints strung out behind them. He looked down at their shadows. They looked more or less the same. He couldn't see any oddities. Back then he could have sworn his eyes were playing tricks on him, but Steva had also seen what happened. No doubt about it. Okay, I know it's a tricky subject, but what happened exactly? You don't have to bring that up. Veronica lowered her gaze. Anton hadn't asked out of politeness. He was genuinely curious, but he couldn't tell her that. Okay, should we talk about something a bit lighter? Such as? Anton was already regretting that he'd asked her out. It was pleasant enough, this little stroll, but he had absolutely no idea what they could discuss. Everything seemed far too trivial, too mundane, for someone so perfect. What did Sasha talk to her about? Hey, what do you feel like talking about? Ever seen a large for Trier? He blurted it out. It made him want to cringe. This unpredictable, straightforward side of her, it felt oddly frightening, as if it was something that might burn him. A while ago?
I love him, seriously, I've seen all his films. Did you watch Medea?
Anton had not watched it, but he nodded vaguely. They went down to the river. At the water's edge, someone had left behind a crown of small white flowers. Their petals quivered in the wind. Veronica picked up the crown and fiddled with it thoughtfully.
The festival's going up, you know. Cupola night, I love it.
Anton had no idea that they celebrated such a thing. He nodded. So, what happens?
The usual dancing, jumping, bonfires. Look in the future, you're a comic, right?
Do I have a choice? She smiled. No, she was simpler than he thought. Much more easygoing, nice. They sat together on the log for a while. Veronica did most of the talking. Anton listened, drinking her words, analyzing them like a mathematician picking over the components of the equation. When they returned to the campus, he felt calm and happy, as if he'd been relaxing at some holiday resort. There were other people wandering through the courtyard. Someone was playing cards. White was coming down the stairs, dressed as usual in the warmest clothes. Just as they glanced at each other, he saw White smile at him. What smile? Anton lowered his eyes so quickly he couldn't quite tell.
Anton!
White called out softly. How quiet he was.
Hey there, how's it going?
Okay? He answered. It was true enough.
Did you need to do any laundry? I don't know what it is yet.
I do. Anton lied. Just give me a minute, I'll be right there. He ran to his room, grabbed the first thing he could find in the cabinet, and rushed back downstairs. He also didn't spend some time with White. He was alone, the other man was alone. And two... Wait. That sounds like a weird plot twist we are getting. And two was company, wasn't it? They walked together to the forest as the trees swayed in the breeze.
It's an old place, this, don't you think?
White asked him. Well, of course, so it's not just me. Thank God. Anton was on the verge of saying something about his shadow, but thought better of it at the last moment. Oh, sure, but it's not that bad.
Oh, I like it. The river, the forest, these mountains over there. Have you seen much of the city?
I like it. The river, the forest, those mountains over there. Have you seen much of the city? Not really. I get up, I head to work, and then go back home. I mean, would you like to go somewhere this evening? I don't have much else to do. What is this game turning into? Why not?
What about the Moon Cafe then? I'm told it's not to be missed. Not that we have an alternative, I suppose, but people say it's a wonderful place to eat.
Either this place accepts you or it doesn't. Steve had told him, I guess. I passed the test. Anton thought. How long had it been since he last made a friend? Sounds good. Decline. Save the game. Boom. Pam. Pim. Sounds good. Sure. The washing machine gave a beep. Then the drums spun and turned like a great mouth chewing on Anton's single t-shirt. That's not how you write a t-shirt. White had brought a good deal more laundry. Everything seemed to be a different shade of grey, like an ancient black and white photo, as if both he and his possessions had been entirely drained of color.
It's cold out, huh?
White observed as they stepped outside. He looked like an old lad, standing there with his shoulders hunched and his hands clasped over his chest. He first was breathing like a living thing. Each gust of wind was a freezing rush of air that sunk Anton's face as if he'd just been slapped. Evening had painted the trees a deep blue, and Anton worried that night would fall before they got back home. They made it in the end. He waited for White to drop off his things, and then they set out to find the cafe.
I've been dreaming of a decent cup of coffee.
White sighed. Are we out of instant in the kitchen?
Oh, no idea.
He gave a small smile.
But you can't beat something made to order.
True. Okay, I wouldn't know. I don't drink coffee. But I can say that about tea, I guess. The streets stretched out before them, longer and narrower in the twilight. The last of the snow crunched underfoot. It seemed White loved Bulgakov and Hemingway as well. He was an avid reader in general. The two of them wandered the streets in the cold for some time, chatting about whatever took their fancy. At long last, Anton saw the faded signboard for the moon, and they fell through the door, exhausted and shivering, divesting themselves of their scarves and caps. The cafe was distinctly bohemian. As Anton's brother might have said, there was a little of Persia about it, of India and Morocco. It was like the inside of a gypsy wagon, or some Far Eastern tea house, and all of it was wrapped in fig grey smoke that made your eyes water. Behind the bar sat a man wearing a colorful bandana, his hands like a giant's. "Come on!" White tapped Anton's elbow and ushered him into the mist. Abruptly, Steve and Taro came into view. They had been shrouded by the haze all along, seated at a table in the far corner, where the shadows were darkest. Steve caught sight of them and frowned, as if he considered them unwelcome.
"Good evening, I hope we're not intruding."
White approached them.
"We thought we'd drop in, as you do."
Anton could taste something bitter, as if the unspoken insult that sat sore on his tongue. He winced.
"Fine with me. Evening, Anton."
"We have met." "What?" Anton grumbled, for it was White he felt angry with.
"Oh, there's some coffee. Just a moment."
White slid away from the table. Anton glanced at Tara and instantly dropped his gaze. The sight of her in these surroundings sent a shiver down his spine. Was she a witch after all? There was an empty cup on the table in front of her, and she kept peering down at the dregs, like someone staring in the mirror. She even had a box of tarot cards within easy reach. No smoke without fire, it seemed.
"So, how are you doing?"
Steve asked, clearly trying to keep things civil. Why did he always have to make himself out to be the good guy? Steve didn't seem to be desperate for people's love. It was probably just his conscience nagging him. Anton gave a non-committal grunt, and a acrid cup of coffee was set down in front of him, so it got burned. So hot, he burned his fingers, and yet the air itself was shimmering, subtle waves passing across the table as the heat climbed upwards. Something was wrong. Anton felt ridiculous. He couldn't explain why, and yet he was absolutely certain of it. It reminded him of the day his shadow had grown lighter. He felt the urge to jump up and run outside. Somehow his feet stayed rooted to the floor.
"Do you need to sign for that or something?"
Anton could hear the conversation, but only in fits and starts, as if he were eavesdropping from 5 tables away. Tara sat there in silence, scratching at the tabletop with stiff, nervous movements of one finger. And then she spoke. Her voice was low, almost otherworldly.
"It's nice to meet you, White."
She reached across the table with one slender hand. White took a moment to answer. Perhaps he wasn't used to greeting women on these terms. He stretched out a hand, moving so casually it could have been in slow motion. Anton heard something that sounded like a sob, and then he was abruptly plunged into cold black water. An ocean closed over his head, heavy and dark. Light faded from the water, then color and sound. He could still see Tara sitting across the table, but not her scarf, the cup, or her deck of cards. The smoke lay all around her, a formless case with no end in sight. The music in the background had gone, along with the bubble of conversation. All Anton could hear was a monotonous burbling drone, as if he was listening to the blood pumping through his veins. He tried to scream, but there was nowhere in his lungs. Desperately shook his head from side to side. He saw White, his lips slightly parted, ready to ask a question. And then, just as suddenly, he broke the surface, gasping for breath. The world was solid again. The tabletop was hard beneath his fingertips. The coffee he'd spilled was pulling across the wood. Color rushed back in the world. He saw the glitter of the lamps and smelled smoke curling from the hookahs. The music was playing again, as it never stopped. Anton glanced at Tara. Her face had hardly changed, but a thin, scornful smile graced her lips. "Anton?" Steve asked, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. "You okay?" "Not great." Anton wheezed. "Give me a minute." What was that? Had he just had a heart attack? He was still struggling to breathe. Would it happen again? Hallucinations? Loss of control? Inability to take a single breath? What if he'd been on his own? Or if whatever it was had struck him while he was asleep?
"You've gone quite pale."
White studied Anton's face.
"Are you quite sure you don't want to see a doctor?"
"Quite sure." Anton said firmly, though he didn't quite understand why.
We could just go outside, take a break. It's the smoke, I shouldn't wonder.
Anton nodded quickly and allowed himself to be led away from the table. White collected their things from the cold hooks by the entrance and walked Anton out into the street. The cold air was certainly refreshing, at least he could feel his thoughts falling into place.
Let's help with that.
White dropped Anton's jacket over his shoulders, then stood watching as Anton dutifully worked his hands through the sleeves. They walked slowly back towards the campus.
Does that happen often?
First time.
Do you have problems with your blood pressure? I've had one or two similar experiences.
Blood pressure. It was more like a near-death experience. He'd seen the... Okay, that's not a good choice of music. He'd seen the world change, or the cafe at least, and thorough blood pressure he'd never heard of, and if it's got deficiency, that could cause something like that. The words forced themselves past his lips. There is something wrong with her.
With whom?
White looked at him with an oddly gentle expression. Oh, Joy, now thinks you're a nutcase, shut up already. Tar, just in general. Nah, never mind.
It was the smoke, just the smoke, and the shock of coming out of the cold. You're fine now, everything's okay, you're feeling better, aren't you?
Anton nodded dumbly.
My apologies, I had told you I was going to meet most this laugh. Are you angry with me?
Of course not.
And I just dragged you along with me again, I'm sorry.
It's fine. The resentment he felt in the cafe, this ridiculous jealousy, was certainly fading in the background. What had happened exactly? They just sat down in the cafe, with two other people, nothing more. White walked him home, right up to his front door, and asked again if he still needed any help. Anton felt as if he should be the one apologizing. Achievement unlocked, name good cafe. Coffee, actually. As White shut the door and left, Anton fell into his bed, still wearing his jacket, and stared blankly at the ceiling. At length, Anton forced himself to get up, thinking he needed to change. He strode over to the cove hook. One of the boards groaned underfoot, like an ancient old crow wheezing with laughter. For some reason, this was the last straw, as if a spring inside of him had snapped in two. Anton fell to his knees and attacked the boards with his bare hands. Working his fingers into the seams, he yanked the loose board free. It surrendered almost instantly. Furiously cast it away, it vanished beneath the bed. And underneath the board, there was a recess in the floor. There was a notebook inside the recess, a slime volume in a green checkered cover. Just waiting for some curious treasure hunter to uncover it. Anton lifted it out carefully, as if it might break, then retrieved the board and covered the hole. Who was it who'd left the notebook here in the first place? Some former tenant of this same room? Did he even have the right to read it? Curiosity won out over a guilty conscience, and he opened it up. Diary. Someone had written on the front cover, in a hand he didn't recognize. Whoa, that's a lot. It turned out to be almost empty in that only a couple of sheets of paper remained. The rest had been torn out. Sharp triangles of paper jutted from beneath the cover like broken teeth when the book was closed. Anton still felt uncomfortable delving into into someone else's diary. It was most like watching something intimate he shouldn't be seeing, but here was a name he recognized, Lilia. That Lilia he knew was new here, so maybe the owner of the diary was too. Was someone else, but no. Here was a pencil drawing of her that dispelled any remaining doubts. So who did this belong to? He saw entries dated back to the end of June. That meant someone had last written the notebook at least a year ago. Sketches, idle musing, even nice poetry, though they'd all been crossed out, had the soul of the writer but no ideas to their name. Anton tried to read the poem under the thick cross hatching, but could only make out a few words at best. On the last remaining page he saw another name he knew, Diana. Now that was odd. Diana he knew hadn't even been here a year. So whose diary was he reading? Anton skimmed there again, trying to find at least some fleeting clue to the owner's identity. If they had stayed in this room, then they too came to live in Mirt from somewhere else. They end up staying as a local or live all together. On the back of the flyleaf, Anton found a map little more than a crude throwaway sketch. This was Mirt, he realized, but it didn't match the Mirt he knew. The campus was drawn almost as big as the center of town, and it looked as if the hostels were only a few steps away from the river. It was less a map than a general impression. But still he could see odd symbols dotted across the map, crosses in the strangest places. What did the artist want to note down? Was something buried there? He'd go and look, of course. The curiosity was impossible to resist. Anton fell asleep, dreaming of who might have written the diary, cradling that battered little book in his arms. And let's end the episode, because apparently he woke up, so that will be the next day, and that will be the next episode. So for now, hope you enjoyed, and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.